If I could start my investing journey over now in 2025 with everything that I've learned after investing multiple six figures over the past 10 years in the stock market, as well as helping nearly 1,000 people transform their finances, I would definitely do some things completely different. And not that because what I did was wrong necessarily, but because I wasted years making emotional decisions, chasing shiny object syndrome for sure, and missing out on the power of compounding interest that could have literally added hundreds of thousands of dollars to my net worth by now. And so in this video, I'm going to show you the exact step-by-step investment strategy I would follow if I were to start from scratch here in 2025, just through a lot of experience with failures and successes. And this is the exact strategy that helped my client Erin actually invest $100,000 over the past couple of years in the stock market, of her and I working together. And this is definitely not no get rich quick scheme or crypto moonshot strategy, right? This is just a proven blueprint for building real sustainable wealth. And so let's get into it. I think the biggest thing too is just thinking through like the stock market is not a get rich quick scheme, right? Like if you're just investing in it monthly, like passively, like just basically having the money come on autopilot or maybe throwing a little bit of extra manually in there, right? Like if you're investing in the right things and have good advisorship, it's almost like guaranteed income over a long period of time. Like I hesitate to use the word guarantee, but if you do the right things over long periods of time, there's a massive probability that you will make a lot of money in the stock market. I think that there are opportunities to do some things a little bit more short term, right? Which is like day trading and all of that. This is not really what we're getting into here, but I'm more so like I've been investing, I'll say passively into the stock market over the past 10 years, where like I just decide on what to invest in, how much I'm willing to invest in each month or put it on auto pay, right? With some other dabbling and other experiences in between. But like I'm just putting myself in the shoes of like, okay, after all of this, if I could go back, what would I do differently? And so the first thing would be, I would just start ASAP, right? Even if it's $5 a month, right? Like it's going to be a trust fall and a little scary. And a lot of times I found like it's never going to feel like it's possible. And I'm not saying be foolish, which I'll get into here in a moment, right? But I think just starting immediately just proves to yourself, even if it's small, you can do it. Like you're making it happen and you just kind of incrementally grow from there. And so don't get me wrong here. Like I said, don't be foolish. I think a big thing that I advise people on in most situations is to focus on foundations first before you start investing, at least at a really large scale. It's not to say that you can't build some of these foundations that I'm going to allude to here in a moment and invest a little bit as well, kind of like a little hybrid approach, right? But most times, like just for an easy example, if you've got credit card debt that's got a 25% interest on it, majority of extra money, probably makes sense going towards that credit card just because it's a guaranteed 25% savings. Like I can't guarantee you anything in the stock market, but I can guarantee if you pay your credit card debt off, you would save 25% in that instant. The other foundation to think about too is an emergency fund, which is just a savings account basically, but it's set a pot of money set aside in a regularly accessible account for you to be able to access when an emergency pops up. And I've got other videos and explanations on that, but it should be anywhere from like 3 to 6 months of expenses stored away, right? So like, not to say that you can't invest before those things happen, but I feel like from like the foundation standpoint, the majority of your money should be going towards those. And once those are accomplished, you can think about, okay, do you want to purchase a home? Do you already own one, right? And then that would be like the last foundation I would think through, and then moving on to investing. Again, not saying that you can't invest before those things are done while you're doing those things. Everybody's situation is unique. I'm just kind of speaking from general rule of thumbs here, right? But even if like, okay, you've got a $500 left over and 495 is going towards the debt or the savings account and $5 is going towards investing, right? I think just the sooner you start, the sooner you can take advantage of compounding interest. Compounding interest is how you make money in the stock market, essentially. Yeah, it's a lot of the money that's made in the stock market, right? And so it's how things really start to down the road, really start to multiply fast on top of each other while, inside of your investments. But the trick is you got to it's like a snowball rolling down the hill. You at least got to get it going for it to pick up speed towards the end to turn into, one of the circles that go on a snowman, like to get from a little tiny snowball to that big, you got to at least push it down the hill and get it started, right? And so think of the bottom of the hill being like the end times of your investing when you're getting ready to go take it out and live off of it. The sooner you get started, the bigger that money's going to be, the larger that amount is going to be. And so just some things to kind of think that's compounding interest. And I'll give you an example, right? How does compounding interest work? Let's just say you invest $10,000 in the stock market and you make 10% on that money. 10% of 10,000 is 1,000. That gets added into the 10,000. And so now you have $11,000 invested, right? Now that $11,000 is making 10%. And so 10% of $11,000 is more than 10% of $10,000, right? So that's how it starts to work, where like you make the interest, it gets added into the amount. And even if the interest rate stays the same, you're making a lot more money Because again, eventually here, 10% of 30,000 is going to be a heck of a lot more than 10% of 10,000, which is what we started off with. And the interest just keeps getting added in, and then you're making more money because it's a larger amount of that percentage that you're making. And so you want to get that started ASAP. All right? One thing that really changed my perspective a couple of years ago, and I wish I knew this when I first started investing, was the philosophy, I guess, which is that if you can afford to be a consumer of a product, you can afford to be an owner. So I'll give you an example, very simple one. If you can afford to spend $5 at Starbucks every day, you can afford to invest $5 in Starbucks stock, right? Because you can afford to consume the product, right? Why can't you just turn around and put that into ownership in the company? That's what stocks are. Stocks are just ownerships in companies issued to you in shares. And so like if you put that $5 into Starbucks, you're buying a very slight little tiny bit of ownership in Starbucks, right? So point being is that you can afford to be a consumer, you can afford to be an owner or an investor in that company. And so sometimes I even do it like, there's a Nike outlet right up the street from me. I like my Nike stuff. Honestly, this hoodie's from there. I've got great deals, but I spend a decent bit there throughout the year. And so I'm like, well, if I can afford to do that, if I can afford to just drop to $100 at Nike, I'm going to pick up my investment app and I'm going to invest $100 in Nike stock or $100 in some type of company that I'm trying to buy ownership in, because I could clearly afford to be a consumer over something I didn't need. Not to say that like make yourself wrong for that, but it's just the idea of like you can afford to be a consumer and you can afford to be an owner or an investor. All right, so that's the first thing. It's like start ASAP, right? Number two here, take advantage of employer match programs for your retirement fund. So if you're at an employer and they have what's called a match, take advantage of that. It's literally basically free money. So I'll give you a very easy example. A lot of times employers, like on your employer 401k or 403b or whatever retirement account that they're offering, they offer what's called a match, part of their benefits program, right? So a really generous match would be like 6%. What that means is they are willing to match up to 6% of your income each year if you invest that into your 401k, right? So I'll break the numbers down. Let's say you make 100K a year, right? And you put in 6% of your income into your 401k, which would be $6,000, right? Your employer will match up to that percentage. Some are 6, some are 4, some are 5. You'll have to figure out, if you don't know, what your employer matches up to. This is an important detail here. Let's just say it's 6. So you put $6,000 in there this year. At the end of the year, they literally just match it and they put $6,000 in. They won't go higher than the 6%. So if you go higher than the 6%, they're not matching. They match up to 6%. So you have to figure out what your employer's limit is. That's literally free money. It's 100% return on investment of your money. It's saying if you put in $6,000, if you put in $5,000, right? Or however much your limit is, right? We will literally match that. We'll double your investment, right? Which is crazy. Then you think about it, and it's making money in the stock market because it's invested. So let's just say it's making 15% by being in the stock market and you're getting that 100% match, right? It's a pretty good deal. And so I would ask your employer if they have a match, right? And like see if you can start taking advantage of that, because there's nowhere else in this world you'll get basically a guaranteed 100% return on investment. But in most cases, I advise people to not go above the match amount. Why? It's because if the only reason why I tell people to invest in their employer retirement funds a lot of times is because of the match. If I've had employees before, or not employees, clients before that didn't have a match on their employer retirement fund. They had one, they had the opportunity to contribute one, but the employer didn't offer a match. I was like, don't even invest any money in there, right? Let's go elsewhere with your money. The reason why is because like the fee structure and the taxes on, like 401ks, 403bs, a lot of times can be pretty high, and that eats away at the profits, right? We really just want to take advantage of the free match if there's one, right? And if you have more money to invest on top of the free match, let's figure out where else to take your money instead of throwing more into that account, right? It's not a bad, you could do worse things with your money, but you can make more money somewhere else is what I'm saying. You do better with another investment somewhere else. And if you don't have a match at all, I would consider just opening up a Roth IRA or traditional IRA, which is also a retirement account, just a little bit more tax efficient and profitable. And then speaking of tax efficient, the next thing I would do after taking advantage of the match from employer, number 3 would be think tax efficiently, right? And so you have to understand the tax implications of the investments that you're making, right? Most times investments can get taxed at 3 stops, right? Which is when it goes in, when it grows, and when it comes out. Like when you take it out, let's just say in retirement maybe, or like you need to pull from it tomorrow for something, right? So those are the 3 stops it could be taxed at, right? You want to basically look for the investment vehicles that are not taxed at all 3 stops. Hopefully maybe just one, and start there, right? Before you start to invest in things that aren't as tax efficient. And so I'll give you an example, right? Let me just keep this simple. IRAs, whether Roth or traditional, they're only taxed at one of those stops. a brokerage account, like if you open up like Robinhood and started, investing, money into stocks and bonds, like that's a brokerage account. Like you can also open up brokerage accounts with investment firms, right? Those are taxed all 3 steps. The reason why some people have brokerage accounts over retirement accounts is because brokerage accounts, right, you can take the money in and out whenever you want, and there's no limit. Like there's no, like, accessibility is very easy. Right? You don't have to wait till a certain age. You can take it out and basically money out whenever you want, right? Compared to a retirement account, if it's a Roth IRA, you got to wait till you're 59 and a half years old. Some 401ks are like 64 or something along those lines. So point being is just think tax efficient. So when you're doing your research and you're talking to a financial advisor, ask them, what are the most tax efficient investments I can make? A lot of times the tax efficient investments, they have limits on how much money you can put in. And so if you have more money to invest after you go tax efficient, just keep going. What's the next tax efficient investment I can make until you get to the least one? I'm not saying the least tax efficient one should be your last resort, but just think tax efficient. Like ask questions around tax efficiencies of the investments. Basically, it just will allow you to pay less taxes and allow you to keep more money in your pocket, right? By the way, like if you want to do some implementing of these strategies in this video, getting your complete financial foundation in place, while also getting your complete financial foundation in place, you can click the first link in the description to learn more about the Good Steward program and see if working with us would be a good fit for you. Next thing I would do, right, after working with us, I know if I could go back and restart my investment strategy right now, I would at least start to explore what is called infinite banking investments. One of them is called a cash value life insurance policy. And this gets a lot of heat on the internet for some reason. I think it's because it's for a very unique human being and it's sometimes pushed to just everybody or a lot of people instead of that very unique human being. But there are a lot of benefits of it too. So side note, like I'm not getting anything. I'm not making any commissions off anything that you buy here. Like this advice is non-biased. This is just my own experience here, right? But an infinite banking tool is one, like there's a couple, but one's called a cash value life insurance policy. And a cash value life insurance policy is a life insurance policy, right? Just like an ordinary life insurance policy. It also has a cash value feature to it. That's why it's called cash value life insurance policy. The cash value is part of the premium, which is your monthly and or annual payment that you're making, most times monthly. Part of that is actually going to like a savings / investment feature, right? Where you're not only making a monthly payment that's go towards interest, but it's also got an investment feature to it where you can make a little bit of money off the money that you're putting in. And then also it has an infinite banking tool. And so let me explain those 3 components and I'll come back to infinite banking. I think insurance is very straightforward. Like you're just investing in an insurance policy. The investment or savings feature, right? It depends on the policy. Things can differ, right? But the institution that I go through, Northwestern Mutual, and the one me and my wife have several of these, right? It is a guaranteed 6 or 7% return on investment each year on the money that you put in. And so let's just do easy math here. It's just simple made up scenario here. Let's just say my policy, I invest $500 a month into it. That's the premium payment. $30 of it is for the life insurance policy. The other $470 is put into this investment or savings feature. I say investment and savings, those are kind of 2 different things in a way, but it's technically looked at as an investment because you're making it, 6 or 7%, which is much more than any savings account could give you. But it's technically a savings account because it's insured just like a savings account. So if you were actually technically investing your money, you would have risk of losing it. There's 0 risk of losing your money in this savings feature of this cash value life insurance policy because it's insured just like your savings in your checking account is at your everyday bank. It's got the same insurance policy backing that's protecting you for simple depictions and teachings, right? And so it's a guaranteed 6 or 7% each year for the money that you put in there that goes towards that savings feature. And then there's the infinite banking tool piece of it, right? After certain periods of time, for example, my policy, after 3 years of investing in it, I can borrow 15% of what's in there. After 7 years, I can borrow 100% of the principal of like what I actually put in there, right? And so that's why it's unique for people, for I think a unique person, because not a lot of people can basically take $1,000 and invest it into something and say, hey, you can't touch this money for 7 years, right? And if you do, you pay a large amount of taxes, penalties, and fees. And that's a pretty unique situation, I think, in today's age, right? And so that's why like some people disagree with it because it's like it's pushed on people that yes, in 7 years, they're going to be pumped that they had the discipline and did it. But it's like, was it actually in their best interest in the short term? Because that money just gets locked up, right? Basically. But then In 7 years, you become your own bank. You can borrow against this money tax-free, right? There's no hard credit check. There's no somebody like, denying you it's your money. You can borrow. Like you can literally have it into your account in like 2 business days if you wanted to borrow against it, right? And you pay it back at 5%. 5 to 6% depending on the policy. And the majority of that, like mine, when I borrow against it, it's 5.4%. The 0.4 goes to Northwestern Mutual, and the 5%, basically all of it, just goes back into my account. Unlike when you pay 15% at the bank for a loan, that interest goes into the bank's pocket. The interest that you're paying on this loan, when you're borrowing into your own funds, it's just all going back to you for the most part. There's no repayment schedule either. It's not like, hey, you owe this money for the next 10 years on the 15th of each month. It's like, no, it's your money. Just pay it back how you please. I advise setting up a responsible repayment schedule, but that's just a cool feature. It doesn't show up on your credit report, nothing. Like you are now the bank, right? Which is why it's called infinite banking. So there's also IULs as well, a little bit different. The only difference with an IUL and a cash value life insurance policy is that an IUL, it's actually not a fixed guaranteed 6 to 7%, right? You're actually tied to an investment in the stock market with that one. So this isn't a savings account. This one's actually an investment feature, right? The benefit of that is like you can make more than 6 or 7%. The downfall is you could lose 6 or 7%. You can go all the way down to 0%. You can't go negatives on this policy, which is pretty cool for the most part, for most policies, right? But you can actually lose money, right, with this policy. So it's like, okay, do you want one that has stability, guaranteed 6 to 7% growth, or do you want to take some risk to maybe make a little bit more money? It's a difference, right? So just thinking through those, like at least knowing those, they're awesome features. My wife and I, we have a couple of them, and we're at the point where we can start borrowing against them, and we've been utilizing that strategically, and it's just really cool. It's like I don't have to go to the bank, like if I don't want to. The other thing I always kick myself, I tell my brother-in-law this all the time, like, because he's like 22, 23, and I'm trying to tell him to do this. I was like, if I could go back, I would do the duplex real estate trick, right? Which I guess not trick, but like strategy. And so basically what I'm saying with that is that like buy a duplex, right? Live in one side of it, rent the other side out, right? The rent that you're charging for the person living on the other side is going to cover your mortgage most times. If not, maybe, cover your mortgage plus a couple of $100 back in your pocket. So your living expenses are basically free, and you can possibly be profiting to help with your other bills as well, right? And someone else is making that payment on the property that you owe. So they're the ones putting the equity in the home for you, right? So while the value of the home increases over the years and that tenant pays it down while you just live in the other side for free, if not for a profit, it's also increasing your wealth, because the more equity you have in a home, a lot of times the wealthier you are. So equity is just the difference between what you owe and or what it's worth, and what you owe, or what you could sell it for, and what you owe. So if you have a home that's worth $500,000, you owe $300K on it, right? The gap in that is $200,000, right? That's the difference. That's the equity in the home, right? You've technically, if you sold the home, you'd walk away with $200K, right, in your pocket, right? And so someone else is putting that equity in the home for you while you live for free, if not profitable. Then also, when you move out, you can just use it as a rental property. And the key is that this is a rental property on a primary mortgage, not a rental property or an investment mortgage. The difference is investment properties, a lot of times when you're taking out a mortgage for that, they want 20 to 25% down, right? When you're buying a first time home, particularly, right? Or even most homes, like, you could get down to, 3, 5, 10% down payment. If you're a first time home buyer, it could be 3% down payment. So it's a lot less money to get into this. Right. And then also interest rates on rental properties are higher because in a way they know you're making money. Right. And there's a little bit of a risk on that because it's an investment instead of just like a primary home. But like the interest rate is higher on rental property loans compared to primary resident homes. Right. And so that means the monthly payment's bigger. But when you buy this home, right, the duplex, you're going to live there. So you can do a primary mortgage, which allows you to put less down, and you're going to have a cheaper interest rate. And when you go to move out in a couple of years, you can rent out both sides and you don't have to transition that over to a rental or investment property mortgage. It's still just that cheaper interest rate and you got a whole bunch of equity in your home, right? It's a great hack. I regret not doing it. So anyways, before I get too deep down that sorrow rabbit trail, the last thing I would understand, which has probably helped me the most, right, is understand the stock market isn't the only investment, right? Meaning that you can invest in the stock market, you can invest in real estate, and businesses, right? These last two probably help me the most. Businesses, which is yours or somebody else's, which I'll talk about my situation here, right? And also there's so many businesses that you can buy and or invest into. It's a really big thing. I'm sorry, I keep rubbing my eye. My allergies are acting up or what. But, I'm going to come back to that. The last point here that's also really helped me as well is investing in yourself, right? It sounds crazy. I'm not saying like, go blow $500 at the spa today because Justin told me to invest in myself, or like, go buy a car you can afford. Like that's not what I mean. I mean, like, invest in yourself in learning opportunities, right? Mentorship, and increasing your health, right? Like, I've paid hundreds of thousands of dollars in my own mentorship, and it's invaluable, right? And so just thinking through, like, when people hear investments, they only think the stock market. And the stock market's great. It's a great vehicle for long-term wealth. But let me break this down. Let me take yourself out of it for a second and just talk about stock market, real estate, and businesses. Businesses would be investing and starting your own business like I did. And I was very blessed, made a couple of multiple seven figures a couple of years into it. And I could have never made that money in real estate and or the stock market, especially that fast with that much fulfillment, which I'll come back to. Or you can invest in buying legitimate businesses that are already profitable, right? That are already operational, or buying into ownership of one, right? So like, that's a very common thing. And like, it's something that's very prevalent right now because of the group of people that are I think they're baby boomers, the generation are getting ready to retire. They own the most small businesses of any other generation, and they've got nobody to leave these to. And they're kind of banking on the sale or the pass off of these companies for their retirement. And so, that's not something I'm a massive expert in, right? But talking through like the business side of stuff. So let me reiterate here, or kind of just tell you where this kind of all started for me. When I was 26 years old, I was on a beach in Hawaii, right? And it was March 2020. And it was like, we almost got quarantined in Hawaii. It was right before COVID shut down. I did not have this business yet. At the time, I was working for Johns Hopkins Medicine, where it's like the biggest healthcare institution in the world. And I worked on the business sides of the hospitals, right? So like, I ran the hospitals, like the suit and tie people, like the CEO, the directors, all of that. Like, the hospitals are a business at the end of the day, right? So you got your doctors, your nurses, people taking care of the patients. And there's a business group that runs it on the back end. And that's what I did. And I learned a ton business-wise, financially, operationally. I had some incredible mentors and bosses there. And one of my positions, I reported directly to the president of one of the Johns Hopkins hospitals, which was an incredible learning opportunity. But we go to Hawaii on this vacation, and I'm laying on the beach 9 a.m. on a random Tuesday. And I was like, I have to figure out how to let this be my life for the rest of my life. I can't let someone else continue just to control my time, my energy, and my paycheck. And I had a really good job at the time. I was making six figures for, I loved working for Hopkins. It was a great career path that I was going to climb, but I was like, that ain't for me. And so I literally get up out of the sand and I go into the Airbnb and I call my financial advisor and I say, his name's Nate. I say, Nate, when can I retire? And he ran some numbers and he was like, good news, man. Like, sooner than most people, 58 years old, or I think he said 56 years old, right? Which is 9 years sooner than most people do at 65, right? But to me, I'm 26 at the time. That is horrible news. That is 30 years down the road. I said 30 years? Right? For me to go to a day job that I don't love, let alone barely like, live for a short 2-day weekend, get looked at sideways if I take a week vacation and spend 60 hours a week away from my family, and then not live my life until I'm 56, it doesn't make any sense to me. And so that's where the epiphany came into play, where it's like, there's got to be a better way to reach financial freedom faster. And financial freedom is living life on your own terms with no stress or worries of time, money, or energy, right? Like, you get to wake up, do what you want to do. Right? Or like, I heard this definition the other day. It's like, you're in financial freedom when the passive income that you have is more than the bills or expenses that you have, right? So it's a really simple example. It's like, why are you able to do that? It's because you own assets or an asset or assets that make you enough money each month and each year to cover your expenses and your lifestyle, whether you choose to show up or not. AKA, enough passive income is coming in, right, each year to cover your expenses and your lifestyle, right? And so you have to ask yourself, when do you want to be financially free by? And then pick the vehicle or the asset that I said, or the vehicle that will provide that in the period of time that you want to be financially free in. And so the stock market, that's what my financial advisor was telling me. 56, man. I'm like, dude, it's great. Like, but I'm not trying to retire at 56. What are my other options here? So you really have real estate or a business, right? And I'm not saying to hop off here and start a business, but there's a cap on the stock market on how much you can make each month and how fast you can become wealthy, particularly with the amount of money that you're able to put in. There's a cap on the amount of money you can make with real estate because you can only get approved for so many mortgages to buy so many rental properties at once. And you can only charge so much for rent, right? But there's not a cap on business. There's not a cap on the amount of money that you can make each month and or how fast it can start happening, right? And so if you want to be financially free, heck of a lot faster than 30 years down the road, you got to ask yourself, are you investing in the right vehicle to make that happen? So that's exactly how I would start investing in 2025 if I could do it all over again. And if you follow this strategy, automate your investing, right? Maximize tax advantage accounts, diversify, right? harness compounding interest, but stay disciplined through market volatility and manage your money wisely, there's no doubt in my mind you'll build substantial wealth over time, right? But having that said, I'm not going to pretend that doing that alone is easy. A lot of times it costs you so much money because when you're trying to do it alone, you delay and or make the wrong mistakes. You'll face questions like, how do I actually open these accounts? Which specific funds should I choose? How do I balance investing with paying off my student loans or my debt? What if I'm already behind and need to catch up fast? Like, you'll second guess yourself when the market drops. You'll be tempted to chase hot stocks when everyone else is getting rich on the latest trend. And honestly, if you're not already consistently investing and building wealth, you probably need guidance and accountability. And that's exactly why I created the Good Steward program. It's a comprehensive financial coaching program for the faith-based where we help you implement everything I taught you, right? Customized to your specific situation with ongoing accountability and support from coaches who are actually foremost successful clients. And we've helped nearly 1,000 people move from financial chaos to confidence, eliminate debt, build emergency funds, start investing wisely, and build sustainable wealth. And with everything I've given you, you really kind of have two options, to be honest with you. It's like, do it yourself, knowing all the problems you'll face. And I wish you the best of luck, right? Like, I really do. Or work with me to finally get your finances under control and start building real wealth. If you pick the second option, amazing. Mentors, compressed timeframes, right? So click the first link in the description to learn more about the Good Steward program and see if it'd be a good fit for you. And so if you want the complete foundation before you start investing, check out this video on the screen right now where I walk you through my full money management system covering budgeting, debt elimination, emergency funds, and everything you need to know to get those 3 green lights for investing that I alluded to here today in place so then you can start investing. Thanks for watching. Make sure to like this video, subscribe to the channel for some more practical financial wisdom, and I'll see you in the next one.